Most people think spending more money on cologne automatically means smelling better. The majority of consumers make an incorrect assumption. What separates a $15 bottle and a $500 bottle has almost nothing to do with how good the fragrance smells on your skin. The answer centers entirely on understanding the cost composition at each price point. Concentration, ingredients, projection, longevity, and the marketing machine sitting behind every bottle on the shelf. After absorbing this, you will have clarity on where to allocate your money, what the fragrance industry does not want you to figure out, and where you are simply paying for a name printed on a box that gets thrown away immediately. Here is what most people get wrong before we even start. Cologne is not a single category. The word cologne, or eau de cologne, is actually a concentration level, sitting at roughly 2 to 4% aromatic compounds dissolved in alcohol. Below that is body spray and aftershave. Above it is eau de toilette at 5 to 15%, then eau de parfum at 15 to 20%, then parfum at 20 to 30%. When someone tells you they bought a cologne for $12, they almost certainly bought an eau de toilette or something weaker. Concentration changes everything. It determines how long a fragrance lasts on your skin, how far it projects into a room, and how much raw material is actually in the bottle you are holding. The cheap end of the market sits between $10 and $40. This is where you find drugstore flankers, celebrity branded releases, and department store impulse purchases. Axe Phoenix body spray, Adidas moves. The knockoff designer bottles stacked near the checkout at discount retailers. These products share a common architecture. The aromatic compounds inside cost the manufacturer somewhere between 30 cents and $2 per bottle. The rest of the price covers the glass, the cap, the packaging design, and whatever licensing fee a celebrity charged to attach their name to the project. The concentration sits at 2 to 5% at best. You're getting a product that lasts roughly 2 to 3 hours on skin before it disappears entirely. The structure of the fragrance industry has remained largely unchanged for decades, even as consumer awareness has grown exponentially through online communities and YouTube reviews. What has shifted is the accessibility of information. 20 years ago, most consumers had no way to learn the actual concentration levels or raw material costs embedded in a bottle. They walked into a department store, smelled something appealing, and bought it based purely on emotional reaction and brand recognition. Today, that information is freely available, which means the gap between perceived value and actual value has become easier to identify. The fragrance houses have responded by doubling down on marketing and heritage claims rather than reformulating products or adjusting pricing. Understanding this dynamic is essential before evaluating any purchase. Here is the uncomfortable truth about cheap fragrance. The chemistry is not inherently bad. Some of the most effective synthetic aromatic molecules ever developed are cheap to manufacture at scale. Iso-E-Super, Ambroxan, and Hedione are all synthetic compounds used in both $15 drugstore sprays and $300 niche bottles. The difference is not always in the ingredient list. It is in the quality control, the ratio of key materials, and whether the house employs a perfumer who actually cares about the outcome or a formulation team chasing a price target. A $20 bottle of Nautica Voyage uses clean aquatic notes that hold up reasonably well. It is not embarrassing, but it also does not pretend to be something it is not, and that honesty is worth something. The mid-range sits between $40 and $120. This is the most contested battleground in fragrance. Designer houses dominate here. Giorgio Armani, Hugo Boss, Calvin Klein, Versace, and Paco Rabanne all live at this level. You're paying more, but what exactly changes? Concentration typically increases to 7 to 12% eau de toilette strength, which pushes longevity from 3 hours to somewhere between 5 and 8 hours on average. The ingredient budget per bottle rises to roughly $4 to $12. Packaging improves noticeably. The glass gets heavier, the atomizer sprays more evenly, and the outer box feels like it was designed rather than manufactured. Armani Acqua di Gio has sold continuously since 1996. That is not a marketing accident. It is a genuinely well-constructed fragrance that works on an enormous range of skin types in an enormous range of contexts. Here is what most people get wrong about mid-range designer fragrance. The markup is not irrational. A bottle of Dior Sauvage retails for around $95 for 100 milliliters. Dior spends an estimated $7 to $14 on the raw fragrance oil inside. The rest goes to the bottle, the global retail infrastructure. and one of the most expensive celebrity advertising campaigns in fragrance history, which cost approximately $20 million in its first year alone. You are not being robbed. You are buying the experience of a globally recognized product with consistent quality control across millions of units. That has a real cost, but you should know what comprises the purchase before you make the decision. The $120 to $300 range is where the conversation shifts. This is entry-level luxury and niche territory. You find houses like Tom Ford, Maison Margiela, Byredo, and Hermès operating here. The ingredient budget per bottle typically runs between $15 and $35. Concentrations move into eau de parfum territory at 15 to 20%, which pushes longevity to 8 to 12 hours on most skin types. More importantly, the perfumers working at this level are given more creative latitude. Maison Margiela's replica line is built around olfactory memory, specific places and moments captured in scent. Jazz Club smells like an actual jazz club. Beach Walk smells like sunscreen and sea air. This is not an accident of budget. It is a choice made possible by working with a larger raw material allocation. Tom Ford is the most polarizing house at this level. Black Orchid retails around $155 for 50 milliliters. The concentration is high, the projection is heavy, and the longevity routinely exceeds 12 hours. It is also one of the most recognizable fragrances on the market, which means it carries the same problem as a luxury watch with a visible logo. You're wearing an advertisement. Some people want that, some people do not. The question worth asking before you spend $155 is whether you want a fragrance that announces itself or one that rewards the people close enough to actually notice it. Those are different products serving different purposes. Here is where the math starts to matter more directly. At the $300 to $600 range, you cross into true niche territory. Creed, Roja Parfums, Xerjoff, and Amouage operate here. These houses use extrait de parfum concentrations in many cases, which means 25 to 30% aromatic compounds per bottle. The ingredient budget per bottle ranges from $40 to $100. You are frequently paying for raw materials that are genuinely rare or expensive to source. Creed uses a maceration process where raw ingredients steep in alcohol for weeks before the formula is filtered and bottled. That process costs time and money. It also produces a fragrance with a quality of blending that cheaper production methods cannot fully replicate. Creed Aventus launched in 2010 and became one of the most discussed fragrances in the online community for a reason. The pineapple, birch, and ambergris accord created something that had not been done at that scale before. The uncomfortable truth about Creed is that the brand charges significantly for its heritage claims. Creed positions itself as a house with 260 years of history, serving European royalty and cultural figures across centuries. Some of those claims are disputed. What is not disputed is the quality of the current product. Aventus retails at approximately $435 for 100 milliliters. It lasts 10 to 14 hours on most wearers and projects strongly for the first 4 hours. The cost per wear over the life of a bottle, assuming 2 sprays per application, works out to roughly $2.50 per day. When you frame it that way, the math becomes more interesting. You're not buying a $435 bottle. You're buying about 175 uses of something that genuinely performs. Above $600, you are in ultra niche and artisan territory. Roja Parfums, Xerjoff, Naxos, Amouage, Interlude, and independent perfumers like Arège Ledore operate at this level. The ingredient budget per bottle can exceed $150. Many of these houses use natural materials that have become genuinely scarce. Real oud, which is resinous wood formed inside Aquilaria trees infected with a specific mold, can cost between $30,000 and $100,000 per kilogram of high-grade material. A single bottle of oud-based parfum may contain $80 worth of raw oud alone. That is not marketing language. That is supply chain reality. When the ingredient itself is rare, the price has a concrete justification that the designer market cannot always claim. Here is what the marketing will not tell you about expensive fragrance. Longevity and projection are as dependent on your skin chemistry as they are on concentration and ingredient quality. Dry skin retains fragrance poorly regardless of what you spend. If you apply a $500 bottle to dry skin without moisturizing first, you will get worse performance than someone wearing a $70 eau de toilette on well-hydrated skin. Applying unscented lotion before your fragrance extends wear time by 2 to 3 hours across every concentration level. This is the most important performance variable that no fragrance house will mention in their advertising because it does not sell bottles. The best value at the mid-range level is Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum. It retails around $110 for 100 milliliters, which is not cheap, but the concentration sits at a true 15% aromatic compounds, the longevity averages 10 hours, and the formula has remained stable since its release. More importantly, it is a fragrance that works in every context, from a job interview to a dinner to a casual Saturday afternoon, without reading as either too formal or too casual. Versatility at a reasonable price point is genuinely rare. Most fragrances are built for a specific context. Bleu de Chanel works everywhere, and that has a real value that the price does not fully capture. The best value in the niche category is Maison Margiela Replica Jazz Club at around $165 for 100 milliliters. The projection is moderate, the longevity runs 7 to 9 hours, and the rum, tobacco, and vetiver accord creates a genuinely interesting olfactory experience that does not smell like anything in the designer market. The cost-to-performance ratio is as honest as you will find at this price level. There is no inflated retail suggested price, no permanent markdown strategy to create the illusion of a deal. The price is the price, and what you get for it is real. The question worth asking before you spend anything above $100 on a fragrance is a simple one. Who is smelling this? If the answer is you and the people within 2 feet of you, then longevity, skin chemistry, and ingredient quality matter more than brand recognition. If the answer includes a room full of people you're trying to impress on first contact, projection and recognizability matter more. A $35 bottle of Nautica Voyage sprayed correctly performs better in the second scenario than a $400 extrait de parfum that requires close proximity to detect. Know what you are trying to accomplish before you decide what to spend. The single most reliable rule in fragrance is that you cannot buy a fragrance based on how it smells on someone else or in the bottle. Fragrance chemistry reacts to your specific skin, pH, your body temperature, and the oils your skin naturally produces. A fragrance that smells extraordinary on one person will smell completely different on another. The only way to know what works on your skin is to wear it for 4 to 6 hours before committing. Sample programs exist at every price level. Surrender to Chance, Scent Split, and Parfums de Marly all sell decants for between $5 and $25. Spend $20 sampling before spending $200 buying. That is the most practical advice in this entire conversation, and it applies whether your budget is $30 or $3,000.